Hi, good morning. My name is Kyle Bishop, and this is my case study presentation for the country of Cuba. So the reason I chose Cuba to study for this assignment was because many Cubans immigrate to Louisville, Kentucky, which is where I live. According to the New York Times, there's over 30,000 Cuban residents currently in the city of Louisville, and I've noticed that many Cubans who live in Louisville live in the Hikes Point or Butcher Bypass area, which is where I reside currently. And many families around here send their students to Seneca High School, which is where I work. Seneca High School has nearly 1,400 students, and over one third of them are multilingual. And out of the multilingual students here, 165 of them were born in the country of Cuba. For the interview on this assignment, I chose a student that's in my third period class, which is a class that's pretty heavy with ML students. She first entered a U.S. school in January of 2023, and she has very good conversational English. During the interview, I asked her what part of Cuba she was from. She said she was from Matanzas, which is just outside the capital of Havana. I asked her what she missed most about Cuba. And she said she really misses the family she left behind, also misses the countryside, the weather, and the food. And since she brought up food, I asked her what her favorite Cuban cuisine was, or her favorite Cuban dish. And she said that it was something her grandma used to make, which was a simple black beans and rice dish with fried plantains. Um, then I asked her what her favorite thing about moving to the United States was, and she said it was the sense of freedom that she got when she moved here, and her family, the sense of freedom they received, but also the job opportunities that her dad had. She also went on to explain how she enjoys American food and some of the local sporting events. Asked her what the most challenging part about moving to the United States was, and she said leaving behind some of her family members and adjusting to new schools while she was still learning English. I asked her if she was happy at Seneca High School, and she said she really liked it here because there are a lot of other students that have moved here from Cuba, and she has a lot of friends in her ESL classes that are from this country she was born in. So it was nice for her to have peers that were from the same country, um, and it was really helpful for her learning English. So the location of Cuba, it's just 90 miles south of Florida in the Atlantic Ocean between the Gulf of Mexico and the Caribbean Sea. It's made up of two islands that are nearly the size of Pennsylvania. The land consists of hills, valleys, and mountain ranges that divide the country into western, central, and eastern regions. The current population of Cuba is nearing 11 million, with 77% of the population living in urban areas. The language and writing system of Cuba, the native language of Cuba is Spanish. Many different dialects with slight changes in accents and pronunciation exist depending on which of the three main regions of Cuba you might visit. There's been a recent educational reform to teach English to students in the Cuban public school system. Beforehand, English was usually only taught to students in the private school sector, but now English is frequently spoken and written by locals in Cuba. And since English is commonly used by the natives, many tourists who come to Cuba for vacation speak English, even if English is not their first language. The culture and religion of Cuba. Cubans are a very family oriented culture. Their gender roles are pretty traditional, with men going to work and women staying at home to take care of the children. Many Cubans strive to maintain strong family bonds. Extended family members will often move into homes that are close to one another. And I learned that dinner is a very significant aspect of the Cuban culture because they see that as a way to help bring their family together. I learned the Cuban religion, that Cuba is one of the most non religious countries among Latin American countries. And although they may not actively practice the religion, some Cubans identify as Catholic. A variety of areas in Cuba are considered non secular, and most Cubans grew up in families undevoted to religion. A recent revival in religion has been spurred by many different congregations, including Baptist, Methodist, and Presbyterian churches. The government and economics of Cuba. Cuba is still officially listed as a communist state. However, there has been a recent increase in private sectors attempting to steer away from communist ideals. The government has made attempts at reforming the Communist Party, but the Communist Party remains dominant. There are moments of political activism, but it is strongly discouraged because natives can be prosecuted by opposing the Communist Party. For the Cuban economy, I learned that Cuba's economy heavily relies on oil that is imported from Venezuela. I also learned that Cuba has struggled to thrive because of recent natural disasters and the continued U.S. embargo established in the early 1960s. I learned that 20% of the Cuban workforce works in the agricultural industry, and that a lot of Cuban families rely on money that's sent in from family members that go to the U.S. or other countries to work to make that money to send back to their families that are still in Cuba. Lots of different reasons, especially recently, that a lot of Cubans choose to emigrate to the United States. A lot of them move here to seek asylum from the hardships and instability of the country's infrastructure. There was a major influx of Cubans coming to the U.S. during the COVID-19 pandemic because the country was in a major state of unrest. They were choked off from a lot of services. The cost of food and gasoline skyrocketed recently, making it very difficult for natives to maintain a positive lifestyle. And, it's sad that Cubans are still under the thumb of the Fidel Castro regime. And the United States has maintained an embargo that was established by John F. Kennedy since 1962. Cubans also immigrate to the U.S. because of its close proximity, only 90 miles from South Florida. A lot of families come over, move to Miami, and then disperse through other parts of the country, such as Louisville, Kentucky. Here's the references that I use for my case study. This can be found on the final page of the case study, the written report. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed my presentation about Cuba.